Hey guys, welcome back to Final Bell. So today we're going to discuss more of UFC 249. So we're going to go on to Henry Cejudo. So Henry Cejudo has beaten Dominic Cruz, the greatest bantamweight of all time, and he's now said that he's retiring. I mean, what do we make of this? It's different. Whenever a fighter retires, there's always a different reception. It depends on who the fighter is. I mean, the thing is it's what you have to bear in mind is very, very few fighters retire on top, especially in the situation that Henry Cejudo's in. He's obviously won titles in two different divisions, but it's not like he's cleaned out an entire division. He's not one of these people like GSP that's beat the same people twice over, and is now waiting for the new generation of contenders to come up. He's not beaten that many people when it comes down to it, and he's still got a rematch waiting for him at flyweight with Joseph Benavidez. So this understandably has been met with a lot of criticism from the MMA community. A lot of people are saying this is just a money grab, and I can see where they're coming from, but what I want to do today is I want to explore both sides of it. So Henry Cejudo, what I want to go into first of all, could he be telling the truth? Could he really be retiring on top? Could he really never fight again? I mean, you've got to look at the things that are in favour of that. So whilst I've said he hasn't cleaned out any divisions, a lot of those divisions have cleaned themselves out anyway. So you look at the fight that he had at flyweight, the only real intriguing fight is Benavidez. But Benavidez obviously got beat by Demetrius Johnson twice, the former champion, and has now been beaten again. So it's not really they're not in a good position to make that fight, and that would be one of the only fights that would be compelling for Cejudo at flyweight right now. I can't think of another one that would make any money at all. And you look at bantamweight. At bantamweight, you've got Cody Garbrandt, who's on a losing streak. He's one of the biggest names in that division. He's on a losing streak, so Cejudo's not going to get to fight him anytime soon. You've got TJ Dillashaw, who's still serving a suspension, and Cejudo has already beaten him, albeit at 125 pounds. Dominic Cruz, Cejudo's just beaten him. Yeah, I think the stoppage was potentially a little bit early, but I don't think Dominic Cruz didn't win the first round. I thought he was doing okay in the second round, but then Cejudo started catching him, and I think that was only going to get worse as the fight went on. Like, Dominic Cruz hadn't fought in 3 years. So I don't think it was a case where Cejudo wasn't going to beat him if he'd have managed to recover from that barrage that Cejudo threw at him. Even if the ref doesn't stop that and Cruz recovers, I think Cejudo probably still goes on to win, either by stoppage or decision. So I think if we're being honest, there's not a whole load of fights for him at the moment. Now, obviously you've got that Petr Yan. Now, Petr Yan is a really, really good fighter, but he's not a big name, and I'm not surprised that Cejudo doesn't want any of him. I'm not surprised Cejudo potentially wants to avoid that fight. There's no need for him necessarily to take it. So, however, you've got to look at it in a different way. If Uriah Faber had managed to come back and beat Yan, then I think Cejudo definitely sticks around and takes that fight. I mean, in terms of, if you look at it from an overall perspective, could he be retiring? Yeah, there's not that many interesting fights out there for him. He has, as he said in his interview, he has actually been doing some form of athletic competition his whole life. And he alluded to his body sort of being a bit shot as well. He said that he had a couple of surgeries a couple of injuries that needed surgeries, and that he'd been recovering from and whatnot. So I can understand, there might be some truth in what he's saying, that he potentially doesn't want to stick around too much longer. However, now I'm going to come on to the second point of the video, and I'm going to explore why he probably isn't retiring. Now, this whole gimmick that Cejudo's been putting on, I would probably say since he sort of got the title, since he beat Demetrius Johnson in a fight that I believe Demetrius Johnson won, by the way. So since he won that fight, he's been doing this. He's been doing all these cringy things, like turning up at the belts, calling himself Triple C, you know, making these weird skits and promos and getting MMA media to record them and whatnot. And I think there's a reason behind that, and the reason that he's done that is to try and make money. Now, I'm not an expert on the pay-per-view figures, and you know, the figures don't get released massively. You know, we don't ever know exactly what the numbers are, but he's not done any big numbers since doing that. Like, nothing he's done as far as that goes. It's made a lot of people hate him from the MMA community, but I don't think it made his fight against Dillashaw any bigger, or the Marlon Moraes fight, or the Dominic Cruz fight. I don't think it made those fights any bigger than it otherwise would have been if he'd just been acting like himself. So I think that whole gimmick has not worked, but it was an obvious ploy to try to get money. So this is a guy that we know, and I'm not criticising him for this, by the way. I think MMA is a short sport, and fighters do have to try and maximise their earning potential. But this is a guy that we know will do things solely to try and make more money out of fights. So I don't think that this, as a publicity stunt, it's not beyond him to do it. It's not beyond Henry Cejudo to do this as a publicity stunt. Like, if it was someone like Cowboy Cerrone, he wouldn't just say I'm retiring for no reason. He wouldn't do it in order to try and get a leg up in contract negotiations. But Henry Cejudo's, I believe, has done this because it leaves two divisions without very much credence, in my opinion. Like, if you take Henry Cejudo out, who have you got fighting for the title? I don't know, maybe Dominic Cruz versus Jan, but you already know that Dominic Cruz has lost to Cejudo, who is still in his prime age. It's not like Cejudo's on the downswing or anything like that. So you've got these potential fights, and they don't do anything for anyone. Like, it has to be Cejudo and someone for it to be a credible title fight. Additionally, the biggest evidence for me that this is a publicity stunt would be that at the post-fight press conference, can't get my words out there, at the post-fight press conference of UFC 249, Henry Cejudo was asked a question. He was told, would there be anything that could convince you to come out of retirement? Would there be anything the UFC can offer you? And to that, he responded, I know the number. He says, Dana White knows the number. So, it's pretty obvious from that this guy will come back. Like, he's definitely going to come back. Like, he's holding out for more money on a contract. That is clear as day. And he's not the first person to have done something like that. Conor McGregor does it all the time. He'll threaten to retire, and then the UFC will have to offer him more money. So I think that is exactly what Cejudo's done. Now, will the UFC offer him the money that he wants? Probably not. Henry Cejudo is a great fighter and a tremendous athlete, but he's not someone that's absolutely vital to the UFC. He's not a massive star, and he's not a massive draw. So he's not someone that the UFC is going to be like, oh, without this guy, we're really fucked. No, he's not that guy. So I think what will most likely happen, the UFC would rather have him around, because it's more like their divisions are more credible if he's there defending the title, because he's the one that's ultimately got the title. So as far as Peter Yan goes, the only way to build him up is to have him fight someone like Cejudo, someone that's actually got name recognition. And if they just put Yan against Dominic Cruz, I don't feel like that's going to work, because Cejudo's just beat Dominic Cruz, and yeah, might have been a slightly early stoppage, but it was still a convincing win for me. He won the first round, he was starting to take over the fight in the second round, and then he stopped Dominic Cruz. He had him badly hurt, you know, whether you want to call it an early stoppage or not. So it does leave these divisions without some credence. The most likely outcome is that the UFC will not offer Cejudo what he wants to come out of retirement, but I think they will offer him a significantly bigger number than whatever it is he's getting at the moment. The question is, will that be enough for Cejudo? I think it probably will. I think that anyone that's an athlete they will want to, whilst he said he spent enough time doing this, and I understand that mentality as well, I think he was just trying to give some credence to his retirement when he said that, to be honest. He has been doing this a long time, but at the same time, he is still, as I said, more or less in his physical prime, and definitely in his athletic prime. He's come into his prime as a fighter. His fight IQ is very high. I don't particularly like the guy, but his fight IQ is extremely high. He knows how to shut people down. He knows how to game plan very well. So his fight IQ is high. His physical ability is very good. So he can definitely maximise more out of what he has. And he's talking about going into real estate and things like that. I don't necessarily believe him. I don't believe him. He can make far more money doing fighting than he would out of real estate. Unless he owns like some top corporate business at it. So he will make more money out of fighting than it's possible to make anywhere else. Like, that is his cash cow. So if he is offered money for one more fight, now I'm not saying that he'll fight till he's 40, he probably won't, because he clearly doesn't think they pay him enough. This is a man that started acting like an absolute knob for no reason. So it must have been something to do with the money that he was getting paid. So he don't think he's getting paid enough. And then guess what? A couple of years later, he goes and retires and says he's accomplished everything that he wants to do. When he was given this belt because TJ basically tested positive. So he's won it and defended it once. He won the other belt and defended it once. So it's not sort of most people's idea of everything that you can achieve. He can definitely do a lot more. He's physically capable of doing a lot more, Henry Cejudo. So that's going to be my conclusion on this. You guys might have different opinions. As always, please put those in the comment section. Do you think he's going to retire or not? I get the sense that most people agree with me. He probably ain't retiring. So whatever your opinion is, as I said, put it in the comment section. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Please turn on the notification button if you're already subscribed. And I will be bringing you more MMA and football related content very soon. Peace.